A very good morning, guys. Welcome to another lecture with me on communication skills. Before we start this off, let me set this right. There are a couple of things that need to be checked. Okay, so for the meanwhile, I'm hoping that you can see the background around me. I changed it to a live background. I thought that it will make it a little more interesting, so you people might get bored during the lecture. It happens, so we people don't have such huge retention times these days. So I thought that what we'll do is I'll just change the background around me. I'll make it fishes and things that looks cute sometimes, and then it also is lively enough so that you people don't get bored. So yeah, that's the new addition to the thing. Okay, so today that we have as topic is pretty interesting. This is also something that is new. It's not something that that has been happening for a long time, but the component of it is pretty much the same. As in, people have been doing this, or the examinations have been testing students on this for a long time. But this component as a competitive examination element is new, and it's called the writing ability test, that is WAT. So when it comes to this is no different from the other writing ability examinations that you people might have been taking in your schools or in your colleges earlier. So this is just the same as that, and what they end up asking you is basically an essay. Now, why is it that this came into existence? Now, this is something that has been started by the IIMs of India. And as you know that in our education culture, most of the institutions start following whatever that has been set up by the most elite institutes here in India. So since this trend has been set up by the IIMs, now the other colleges are also falling in line. And it's only a matter of time that every other institution is going to start going ahead and doing this as well. Delhi University was doing this earlier. So they are also going to go ahead and take this exercise up. And this is majorly a substitution to the group discussions that have been happening as a screening ground in most of the institutions. So why is it that they had to replace the group discussions with something like this? One is that both of them require similar type of acumen, similar type of skill. The difference is what was happening in group discussions was that everybody did not get an opportunity to speak, and it did not take a lot of time for any discussion to escalate to a debate. So this was what was happening predominantly in most of the colleges. So because of this debate environment, there were a lot of students who weren't able to contribute enough. And then too, whenever people were discussing points, they could not really structure their communication well because it was all impromptu. You were given a topic and you had to start talking about it in a minute. So that did not give us a lot of concrete ground to to admit someone, to select someone for a course. Hence this was taken up, and in this what happens is, one, the topics remain more or less the same. That is, if I was asking you about global warming in group discussions, I'm going to ask you about global warming here as well. So the topic is going to be the same, but the perspective on it is going to be yours. That is, in an essay, you generally produce an opinion and you justify it. So you are free to choose to say if you like the topic, you're against the topic, you're for the topic, or you're neutral about the topic. So you're free to say all of that. The only thing is that you will have to justify it. Now, what is it that this whole exercise is about, and how is it that we go about it? Today, we are going to discuss the most important things that you need to remember whenever you are going to attempt a written ability test, which is basically essay writing. Then what is it that the experience has been of the previous students who have made it to the IIMs? These are, I have two cases with me so that you people can understand what is it that these guys were doing. And then I have for you towards the end of it that what are the important tips for you to always get this correct in your examination, right? So there are three stages to this lecture. In the next lecture, when we meet, I am going to share with you a couple of examples as well. But I thought that it is pretty important for you to at least know how is it that you're getting marked on it. Unless you understand this, probably it is going to be very difficult for you to understand how is it that you need to write those essays. So once we know that these are the 5 points on which these people mark us, that is, this is what is the segmentation of the marking scheme, you will be able to produce your answers pretty clearly. Right. To start off with, this is what these people generally test you on. The initial content that they test you on is content and writing style. The other is knowledge. These are the two things that they test you on. When it came to group discussions, they were any which ways testing you on the knowledge, right? So knowledge was also required there. Then content was also important because we people were structuring our communication somewhere, because I told you whenever you were to start your group discussion, you're first going to jot down certain points. You can scribble them on a piece of paper, but in a faster manner, because you only had about a minute to think about it in the group discussion situation. But here you will have a longer period. That is, you will have about 5 to 10 minutes to think about your topic, to prioritize about it, and then produce that communication. Hence, the way in which you write it also becomes very, very important. Now, what do you really mean by a writing style? You must have exposed yourself to a lot of different articles, a lot of different books, a lot of different magazines, and everybody has a different way of writing it. Just the way that everybody has a different way of speaking, there are different ways in which you also write different content. So if you go to your books, you have a different sort of thing. If you read comics, they have a different sort of writing style. When you read somebody's blogs, it has a different sort of reading style, writing style. And then when you read novels, they have a different writing style. So hence, if you have been exposed to all of those styles of reading, then you would also understand that obviously somebody's writing it, hence the writing styles are different. So here, the examiner also wants to understand that what is it that your writing style is. Are you very expressive in your writing style? Are you very descriptive in your writing style? Are you very exemplary in your writing style? That is, you use a lot of examples, very emphatic examples. You can relate to those examples. They're very comical in nature. They're very serious in nature. Or you have a lot of information in terms of definitions. You're able to talk about current affairs because you've been following the newspapers. So you use an active speech, or you use a passive speech. You use a direct voice or an indirect voice. All of those things are going to define what is the style of writing that you have. But today I'm going to primarily talk to you about one writing style that I want each one of you to write, especially in the examination situation, because that's the style in which most of the leaders would write. So at the end of it, the whole exercise trickles down to the fact, are you a leader or not? Are you being seen as a leader or not? So it trickles down to that. So these are the two important things. The first important thing is the content and writing style. The other is your knowledge. So these two things are any which is primary to your examination. The other is how is it that you reach about it? You reach about it by reading newspapers, magazines that cover a variety of topics. So I'm hoping that you remember the 5 websites that I shared with you in the first strategy class. So it's also there on YouTube. Just go ahead and watch that video one more time. It's in the part 2 of the first strategy lecture, wherein I shared with you 5 different websites that you're supposed to follow every day, especially in the times of your examination when you're preparing for it. Now, what is the benefit that you get out of it? When you talk about the website like New Yorker, that gives you a creative style of writing. So when you start imbibing that, probably you will be better in your creative end of writing. When it comes to a website like The Guardian, so that's a very prestigious website when it comes to the news reporting. So all the news articles that you get, one, they are not going to be fraudulent. They have their sources right most of the time. And the other is that they don't talk in a non-native language. They generally write things which are pretty near to the UK English, and hence you will also get your words, phrases, idioms, all of those correct. So that's a really good reading practice. Then when it comes to Project Syndicate, that was another website that I shared with you. That's again a very important website to learn opinions or opposite opinions. Opinions are something that again a scholar, a subject matter expert, or somebody who has an interest in certain field would be able to give you. So you as a person can give me an opinion on only one thing that you are really good at doing. So you could be good at sports, you could be good at education, and then you will be able to produce your opinion on that. If you're producing your opinion on everything in this world, then in that case probably you're just a journalist. You're not really somebody who's an expert. So your opinion is not going to be considered a treasured resource. So this is what you get on Project Syndicate. You have people as the likes of Shashi Tharoor here in India. He's a contributor. Mr. P. Chidambaram, he's a contributor, and then the likes of them from the world. Imagine, that's a global website. So you get really good articles there. Then I talked about a website called Aeon, which is something which is a collation of all technology news, all the things that are happening about space and technology, all of those things you get on that website. And it's pretty interesting. So that gives you a new perspective on how is it that the world is going to grow, what is it that is happening on the side of technology. So you can go ahead and read that website as well. That's on the little medium side, wherein you're looking for that masala sort of a news, if you have a tint towards technology. And the last is about literature. So that website is going to give you a cultural, literary, historical end to your knowledge. Hence, it covers a wide variety of topics that you can ever think of. So if you are following those 5 websites every day, I am pretty sure that you are going to make it to the top circles every time. That is, if you start doing that today, one is that you're obviously going to clear the examination. That's the requirement for it. The other is, if you continue to do that, probably you will be able to be the leaders in your college. You will be heading the societies and teams. So it's not just about being good in academics, because subject knowledge is something that most of you are gaining when you're there at college. But what is it that 98% of the people forget is the knowledge around the world, right? So knowledge about the world. So if you're getting knowledge from such secure resources, then you can break into conversations very easily, and hence you will become a leader in your circle. So it's about being in the first 1% or the 2% of the society, and you are going to be there if you are following all of those resources. So that makes it really important. Dutch, if you are looking for those websites, Priya, if you're looking for those websites, please go on YouTube. It's there in the strategy section, second video, right? Part 2, strategy video part 2. So you'll find those websites there. All of those direct links, you can simply tap on them and you'll reach those websites, right? So next important thing that I want you to remember every time that you're preparing for an examination like this is regular practice and evaluation. Regular practice and evaluation. This is very, very important. Now, regular practice means that yes, you are going to write essays, because this is not something that you can just go into the examination and do it right at that point in time. You will flaw at it. You will make a mistake, trust me. And what all are the areas that you're going to make a mistake in, I'm going to discuss with you shortly. So I am going to come to that. But it becomes very, very important that you practice this skill, because it is very hard to gain. It's not something that will come to you naturally. So a skill to write is a difficult skill to imbibe. You can gain knowledge, you can gain a writing style, yes, but you might not be able to produce it in a manner that can be understood by everyone every day, every time. And you will have to write an essay which can be understood by everyone in the easiest way. And hence, this is a skill that you will have to imbibe. And next is evaluation. Now, this is also important, because whatever that I write is going to look really good to my eyes. I cannot say that, okay, it doesn't look good to me, because in most of the cases, whenever I write something, I feel really good about it. And then I overleaf the mistakes that I might be making. And it could also be unconscious. So even if I have written something, it could be that I'm reading it, but it doesn't make, it isn't something that I feel is bad or has mistakes, because I can overlook those mistakes sometimes subconsciously. So it is very important that you get it evaluated. So you can send it to me, or you can send it to somebody who is an elder at your place, or you can share it with your friends if you think that they can correct it for you, or they can give it a read and ask them, do you understand it or not? So all of those things can be done. The other is you must focus on a couple of things, right? The couple of things are, One is good grammar. This we people are any which ways discussing, but when it comes to good grammar, we are primarily talking about a few areas. I'll just come to that. Appropriate vocabulary. Appropriate vocabulary means I'm not talking about the most flowery words. So we do vocabulary exercises when we people are talking about synonyms, antonyms, close test, all of those things, right? So, but the problem here is I'm talking about good appropriate vocabulary in the sense of the essay. I'm not saying that you need to be using very big words, you need to be using specific words. You're only supposed to use words that can be understood by a lot of people. General words is what I want you to use, and that is what is appropriate for an essay. Why? Because essays are considered to be a tool that can be read by a lot of people, right? So they are going to be available to a lot of people, hence we will have to write in a language that can be understood by a lot of people. So you're not going to use a lot of big words, a lot of flowery language, and especially not jargons, technical words that can only be understood by a few people. Don't use those, right? The other is correct punctuation. I don't have to tell you about punctuation and spellings. They are very primary. Why is it that they become important? In the age of technology, what has happened is that we people have forgotten how to write proper spellings, because we people are on our mobile devices most of the times, and then we tend to just type something which is not even correct, and then the autocorrect corrects it, and we don't have to pay a lot of attention to that. So today we are not really concerned if I'm writing in good English or bad English, because the autocorrects are always there. It's there on your laptop, it's there on your phone. But when it comes to the examination, there are going to be two situations. That is, one, either you're going to be doing it on a digital device that will not have a dictionary assist for you. That means the computer will not help you in correcting it, or the other is that you will be scribbling using a pen on a paper. You will be literally writing it, and then you are prone to making mistakes. There's no digital assist to tell you which is going to be the right word, or what is going to be the right spelling of that word. Hence it becomes very, very important that you get your spellings right. How is it that you're going to get your spelling right? By practicing more, writing more. And this is not something that I'm going to help you on, because this is a thing that you used to do in your first or your second grade. That is dictation. You used to get dictated certain words, and you used to write spellings on it. So I don't want you to go back to your I don't want to take you back to your first grade or second grade with me. You can take that journey yourself. You're in any which ways very experienced with that. Okay. So I talked to you about good grammar. And this is very specific. What do I mean by it? I'm not just talking about the prepositions in place, the verbs in place, or the nouns in place. I'm talking about very specific mistakes that we generally make without even realizing that we are making those mistakes. What are those type of mistakes? The first few things that I talked to you about was the subject verb agreement. I discussed that with you, wherein we people discussed if there is a word called either, if there is a word called everyone, that the word is going to change the subject into singular, hence the verb is going to be singular. So we generally make those mistakes wherein we have written an are, or we have written a have instead of a has, right? So those are those small mistakes that we always need to be a little conscious of. Hence, get your subject verb agreement correct. So there are cases of either or, neither nor that we discussed. Conjunctions, we discussed a case of and. In the case of and, what was happening is, if we are talking about two different components, that is cats and dogs, then in that case cats and dogs are going to be plural. But if I'm talking about bread and butter is going to be one dish, hence it is going to be together. So it is not going to take a plural verb, it is going to take a single verb. Bread and butter is my staple breakfast. I'm using and, but I'm not connecting two different sentences. So remember these conjunctions. These are very small mistakes that we tend to make, and we don't even realize those. So these are very simple ideas, and these have already been discussed with you. The other is the problem of tenses. So this is again something that gets a little tricky for us when we are in the examination situations, but we have discussed tenses, and I don't think you will ever face a problem if you get into the habit of using it more often. The problem with us is that we don't use that very often, and I'm not saying that you always have to write it in order to get adroit in it. You can simply speak in this language, use your tenses correct, and you will be able to learn all of the rules of it. Just keep that in front of you once in a week, and you can probably get all of those all of those rules that we people have talked about in tenses. So that's another area where a lot of us go wrong. The other is when I was talking to you about parallelism and modifiers, right? So that's the third problem. The first that I talked about was subject verb agreement. The other conscious thing that you need to do is in terms of tenses. The third that I'm talking to you about is parallelism and modifiers. Now, what was happening here in parallelism, it was not just about the grammatical use of words, it was about the structure of the sentences to be proper. That is, whenever you're making a complex or a compound sentence, you need to keep the structure of the sentence parallel. That is, both the sentences that are coming together, three sentences that are coming together, all of those sentences need to be in the same form, in the same tense, right? That is very, very important as a basic piece of information. So that is a mistake again that we people make unknowingly. You don't even realize that when we are writing it. And this is also a thing that you will find as a mistake in 95% of the publications that happen to publish in English. Trust me, that is something that a lot of people make a mistake at, right? So it's not just about the mistakes in the did, in the mistakes in the tenses, the mistakes in the subject verb. The parallelism is a mistake that goes unseen because we don't even realize it. Why? Because most of us have learned our English by imbibing it from somebody else, by imitation. That is, we have heard somebody speaking, we have read somebody else's work, we have learned it from any other source in the world, music or something, and that's the reason that we don't even see these mistakes. If we people would have been actively learning it, that is, first understanding the language, then the grammatical structure of it, and then trying to use it, then in that case all of these mistakes wouldn't have happened. But most of us don't do it like that, and this is the use of language. This is how it works. Most of us don't understand the underlying grammar, and hence we make that mistake. So parallelism is another important thing that you people will always have to take care of. And the next thing that I talked to you was modifiers, right? So point 3 was parallelism and modifiers. Now modifiers, what are those? Those are basically words and phrases that enhance my understanding about the noun or the verb that is in the sentence, right? Modifiers enhance my understanding of the sentence, enhance my understanding of the action. So whatever word or phrase that actually enhances your understanding, they're basically what? Adjectives and adverbs, right? Anything that adds more information is basically an adjective or an adverb, right? So these are the two things primarily that you will have to take care of. So I'm hoping that you're understanding the underlying structure of grammar. So it's no more about knowing what are tenses, no more about knowing what are verbs, no more about knowing what are pronouns and punctuations and things like that. Secluded. Nobody's going to ask you those questions. Amongst these questions, tell me which of these is a noun. In questions में से बताओ verb कौन सा है, उसका कौन सा form है. Nobody is going to ask you those questions because they're very elementary. Now they just want you to directly apply it. We consider you to be knowledgeable people, and I want you to apply it. So while you're applying it, just don't make these mistakes is what my point is, right? The next thing that I have for you is write at least 1 or 2 essays. A 2 can be an extension of it. So I know that you people might not want to do 2 every day, but then at least write 1 and send it across to me so that I can probably look at it. So on daily basis, that is, right? So seek expert opinion. That is, I can help you if you want to get help. So I get essays from the students who are working with me on RBI examination. There are students who are working for the SSC banking examination. So those people are already sending me essays. When the season comes and the season kicks in for the IAS examination, that is the students when they start preparing for their mains examination and further, that is when they will also start sending me their essays. So I'll be working with them on those. Similarly, you people can also send me your essays and I'll have a look. Although I'm not going to work with you on your spellings and punctuations, don't even think that I'm going to work on you with that. That is something that you will have to take care of on your own. The only thing that I'm going to work with you on is the structure, is the basic problems in grammar that I was talking to you about, and I'm going to talk to you about how is it that you're introducing it and is the conclusion in place or not. So I'm going to give you an overview of how is it that your essay is looking out to be. And if it works well, then it's good, right? You can keep on improving as we go forward. But the key to excelling in this particular exercise is practice, because we people will have a lot of information to share, that is true. So all of us consider ourselves to be people who have been gathering information. So take this as an example. So imagine if tomorrow you are going to get a question on coronavirus in your examination, because that is something that is pretty current and everybody has been talking about it. So each one of us already has so much information about coronavirus, because we people have been hearing it everywhere. News channels talk about it, our parents talk about it, our friends talk about it. Everybody in the world has been talking about coronavirus. So each one of us will have a huge resource of information when it comes to talking about coronavirus. But the problem is that might not be usable information, that might not be correct information, the facts might not be in place. Or is it that I'm required to tell all of that information or not? So there has to be a prioritization of information. So that is the reason that you people will have to practice it beforehand, even if you get an easy topic. But if you're not executing it correct, you will not get the marks in the examination. In order to understand how is it that you get marked in the examination, there are certain parameters that you have in front of you right now. So these parameters are the parameters on which they assess your essay. So the first is the quality of content. What do they really mean by the quality of content? What do they want to understand in terms of what is it that you have contributed? The first thing that they want to understand are the facts. That is, consider this question. If I was to ask you is coronavirus a synthetic situation created by someone to gain a lot of benefit, right? So just to the basic idea is coronavirus a synthetic situation? That is, it has been created by someone. So you might want to go ahead and take a country's name, right? Or you want to write that this country is probably behind it. So even if you write that, your facts are going to be out of sync. That is, the world does not know if this is the country that has done it or not. We don't have evidence enough. Then in that case, I can't put that claim on someone. So I can't really claim that this is the country that has done something. So this is a natural inclination that we generally get because of the news that we people have been watching, because of the discussions that have been happening around us. And then we need to test our facts all the time, right? So most of the people say, इतना सारे लोगों ने कुछ कर दिया, अरे सभी लोग मानते हैं. And by सभी लोग, what we mean is 80%, 90%, and then we tend to write that the same way in our essays. That is, 80% of the people believe. How do you know it? You will have to accredit that data. You will have to share that fact with me with the source. You will have to tell me, have you read it at a credible place or not? Just don't say just the way that it is said in the news that 80% of the people. Don't say that. That what happens is, then in that case, I know that your knowledge is very, very superficial. You'll have to tell me which what was the government advisory that quoted this. You will have to tell me which was the newspaper that you read it in, what was the report that you are quoting here, which is the scientist that you're quoting here, which is the statistician that you're quoting here. So just remember all of those things if you are quoting somebody. Just don't make blatant claims. बिना किसी बात को जाने हुए claims करना factual नहीं होता है, गलत हो जाता है, and that is what they generally test you on. So if you have produced certain facts in your essay, consider this, that they are going to test you on those, and if those facts are not correct, then they are going to mark you a 0 on your general knowledge, right? So that is what is going to happen with you. Next is interpretation or analysis. Interpretation of the topic, analysis of the topic, right? I'm going to give you a small test on it right now after we people have discussed a couple of more things, and then I'll tell you how is it that interpretation plays a very important role in your examination when it comes to essays. And the last part is conclusion, opinion, or solutions. So consider this again, when I was talking to you about group discussions, I gave you an example of greenhouse gases, a greenhouse effect, right? So if there is a topic on that, obviously you are not going to be the one taking sides with the greenhouse effect and saying, हाँ ग्रीन हाउस इफेक्ट ठीक है, चलता है, थोड़ा बहुत हो जाएगा तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. Nobody is ever going to say that. So it is not going to be a topic wherein people are going to be for the motion or against the motion. Everybody on earth is going to be against the motion. everybody is going to say that global warming is bad for Earth. Hence, these are the sort of topics that will come up with a solution in the ending. That is where you will have to tell me that there is this tiny small thing that each one of us can contribute with. These are small measures that everyone can take in order to reduce the pollution that is happening. So they're generally solution oriented. They are not for the motion against the motion type of topics. The other is, if somebody asks you about demonetization, if somebody asks you about government policies, if somebody asks you about economic policies, those are opinion based things wherein you can tell the world that you like it, you don't like it, you are not somebody who is going to take sides, you're neutral about it, because there are pros and cons of it. That is, kuch acha bhi hai, kuch bura bhi hai. You don't know which side to take. You don't know, as in you know which side, but you don't want to quote it as it's a bad thing or a good thing. It is something that can be understood from two people's perspective. For somebody it might be good, for somebody it might be bad. So you can have that sort of opinion as well. Or you can say that it is a bad thing, and you can say that it is going to it is going to subdue the poor people here in India. It is going to kill the poor people here in India. It is going to be bad, something of that sort, right? So you are free to take your opinion. So here you will have to conclude by justifying your opinion. Whatever side that you take, you will always have to justify that side. You will have to tell us why is it that you're saying that he is good, he is bad, or he is all right. I'm not sure if he is good or bad per se, right? I'm not going to take a side. And the last is conclusion, wherein you generally are given a question, you give an answer to it, and then you give a conclusion towards the answer, right? So conclusion is basically giving us a thus, a hence, all of these words. That is why all of those give me an idea that you're concluding the topic. So most of us, in the lure of writing it faster, better, we generally tend to forget to give it an ending. So these words, that is hence, thus, as a result, all of these words are generally an indicator which tells me that, okay, we are nearing the end of this discussion. This is what the writer wanted to say. Hence, these are good indicators. You should use them towards the end of your communication so that the examiner knows that you're ending the communication now. Right? So very important for you to do that. Next is quality of logical arguments. Now, if you remember, when we people were discussing reading comprehensions, I told you that every article has a heading, right? So that heading of that article is called the topic sentence, right? Heading is called the topic sentence, the title sentence. Then I told you that there are subheadings, or there are definitions, or there is going to be first paragraph that is going to tell you about what is it that the heading is talking about. Now, that is what is called the major support statement. Major support statement. That is the heading of the particular article or the essay or whatever that you're reading, any written material that you're reading, or the first few paragraphs that define, that introduce. All of those are going to be called the major support statements. And after that, there are going to be examples, case studies, all of those things, pros and cons that you talk about, advantages, disadvantages, all of those are going to be minor support statements. So what do I mean by logical arguments? By logical arguments, I mean whenever you are trying to support your analysis of something, that is, whenever you're trying to support your opinion, your statement, your side, your opinion about a given aspect, a given process, a given question, you are going to give logical arguments to support it. What do I mean by logical? Logical is something that is fact based. It should not be feeling based. That is, if I ask you, Rahul is a good boy, Rahul is a bad boy, what do you say? Rahul is a good boy because he helps me, he shares things with me, he shares his lunch, he shares his stationery with me. Whenever I don't complete my homework, he helps me in completing my homework, hence he's a good guy. So this is feeling based. Are you talking empirically about this person or not? That is what is important. So you should have looked upon him from every aspect, not just from the personal relation sort of a thing. So that is what is going to be logical. If you're looking at one point from a lot of facets, that is, you have your opinion, then you have somebody else's opinion, then you have the other worldly opinions about this person as well. You analyze all of those and then you produce an opinion about that person. That is what is going to be called logical. Something that can be defended with facts and statistics is called logical. So this is very important, that the quality of your arguments is very good. That is, it is logical in nature. They're not on the basis of feelings, wherein you say मैंने बोला इसलिए ऐसा है, मुझे अच्छा लगा, मुझे बुरा लगा. Tell me why is it आपको अच्छा लगा, tell me why is it आपको बुरा लगा. This is very important. Next is coherence. As far as I remember, we people have discussed this when we were discussing the para-jumble questions. Coherence means that the title that you are talking about, that is what should be explained all through the paragraph. That is, all the statements in the paragraph should be about the main idea, shouldn't be about anything else. So if you're talking about Rahul to be an English teacher, then in that case the whole paragraph should be about Rahul to be an English teacher. That's it. That is Rahul and English. These are the two things that you ought to be talking about. If you go ahead and start talking about the car that Rahul owns, that is, it is red in color, it is this model, it goes this fast, it goes this slow, whatever. If you start talking about his car, then in that case probably it is not going to work well. And this is what is the idea of coherence. That is, all the paragraphs, all the statements in a given particular passage are going to talk about the main idea. Right? Coherence. Next is clarity of language. What do I mean by clarity of language? I want you to use words that can be understood by a lot of people. That is, common words, general words. I'll explain it with an example later. And the last is basic spellings and grammar. So I told you this already. This is not even something that you need an explanation on. That is, your spellings, punctuations, and grammar are of critical importance. Spellings, punctuation, and grammar are of critical importance. So इस चीज के ऊपर खुद से ध्यान रखना है, मुझे इतना बताने का जरूरत नहीं है. Next is I have for you opinions by two of the guys who made it to the IIMs. Their score was within the 97 to 98 percentile, and they share with us their experience of the WAT and how is it that they went about it. So there's the first guy that I'm giving you the opinion by is this guy called Akshat Modi. He said that after getting the IIM call, that is, he started preparing for this whole thing earlier, but when he got the call from the IIM, he stepped on the gas with the WAT preparation. He said that he got into a habit of writing at least 5 articles per week. 5 articles per week. That's about, say, 1 article a day. So that's a lot, right? So he was actively doing it, and that was the reason that he was able to get all of those scores that he got in the examination. So after I wrote an article, I would mail that article to 3 of my close able friends belonging to different domains: engineering, arts, and medicine. Their inputs always help me, and I always try to incorporate their inputs into further articles. He adds that regular practice also helps you to manage your time during WAT. It's of critical importance. It's not just about writing it. Obviously, since it's an examination, it's also time for you. Hence, it is very important that you keep track of the time. I strictly adhered to the clock with clear focus on first 5 minutes for thinking and last 5 minutes for writing. So for writing the conclusion. So then in that case, this becomes really, really important that you also follow this. But what is it that he was trying to talk to us about? That he looked for these 5 or 3 or 4 able friends of him, that is people who were able to read and understand and were able to produce an opinion. So even if you guys have those friends with you, कोई भी आपका दोस्त है, आपको लगता है कि हाँ वो मेरा आर्टिकल पढ़ के मुझे हेल्प कर सकता है, send it across to that person. That person will be able to give you a better perspective. Why is it that he needed perspectives from friends who were from different fields? Why is it that is important? You're not just to send it across to a friend of yours who is studying with you in the same class, in the same school, preparing for the same examination, and also from the same stream. Why is it that you need different experiences? Why? Because you also need different perspectives on things, different points of view on things. And that's the reason that you would want to send it across to people who come from different walks of life. So you can talk to somebody who's elder to you, you can talk to somebody who's younger to you, you can talk to somebody who's from a different field of work, you can talk to somebody who's an expert. So all of those things will help you in gaining perspectives, right? So very important for you to write a good essay. Essay is basically a translation of a lot of perspectives, and then you trying to justify your perspective against other perspectives. It's all about it. It's all about that. It's about a justification exercise. So I am never going to judge you for the perspective that you have on a topic. I'm not going to judge you on that. If your interpretation is correct of the topic and you are able to justify your perspective with logical reasons, you have cleared the examination for me. You will get a really high score. The other guy is Akshay. He was given an abstract topic for the examination, and this is what he said. My preparation for WAT was limited to reading current affairs. That is, he had been following current affairs very closely. However, in cases that such abstract topics are received, the best way to go about it is to find same analogy to some topic that you have known well about. That was how I approached it. That is what he did. Was he was given an abstract topic, and since he was not probably somebody who used to read a lot, but this person was keeping a close eye on the current affairs in India and the world. So what did he do when he was given an abstract topic? He just went ahead and associated that topic with the existing knowledge pool that he has from the current affairs situation, and he shared that in the examination. He got through. He got a really good score. So even if you do not know exactly about the topic, especially in cases of abstract topics can be understood to your knowledge. Abstract topics are very different from the general things. That is, if somebody is asking you about coronavirus, then in that case, this person is asking you about one area, one subject, one event. If somebody asks you about demonetization, then in that case, that person is asking you about one event, one area. But if that person starts asking you about a question like this, I'm writing the question to you here. Wait, I'll write on the screen itself. So if there is a question like this that says, is the color black, what is the relevance of color black in our lives? If that is what your question is, what is the relevance of color black in our lives? Will you be able to write about it? You should be. And this is what is an abstract topic. Now, this is an abstract topic. You're open to think about it in your way, in your perspective. Draw whatever that you would want to, and the only job that you have here is, first, understand the topic clearly. Second, justify all the major points that you are going to produce as an argument to show your opinion. Got it? So try this. I have this topic for you now. So you can try and give me an introduction for it. As in, just give me a couple of lines. What is it that you're going to start your essay with? Just think about it. Take a minute. Meanwhile, I'll take your questions. So DJ is asking me, so what can be the ideal word limit? It's about an 800 words. So it's not a long, it's about a page and a half for your examination sheet, which is a longitudinal one. So it's about a page and a half. It's about 800 words. and you generally get a different time associated with different universities. So if it's Ahmedabad, then you are going to get about 30 minutes. If there are others, then you generally get about 15 to say 45 minutes, depending on the IIM that you're preparing for. But you generally are given about 30 minutes for this. So you can easily take about 5 minutes to 10 minutes in order to just understand the topic, write down those points that come to your mind, structure that communication, and then start writing. If you do anything other than that, that is, you get a little overconfident about the topic that you have been given because you have already read about it, what will happen is that you will go wrong in your communication. How is it that you will go wrong? I'll explain to you ahead. Well, if you face a scarcity of content, that is, if you're not able to think much about the topic, then there is nothing that you can do about it. You will have to beat it. You will have to go with it. If there is a topic that they've given to you, then you will have to write it, or otherwise you'll be preparing for the next year. And that's the reason that I'm telling you to follow current affairs. That's the reason that I'm telling you to write every day, so that you don't face that writer's block. What is it that happens with most of the students? This is what happens. They don't get into the habit of writing, and hence they are unable to perform in the examination. So that's the reason that I'm saying that it's an acquired skill, which can be acquired. It's not something that is difficult and you will not be able to do it. But if you're facing that problem, you better start today. Next that I have for you are 5 key steps that you need to crack the WATs. The first step is understand and analyze the topic. You do not need to be explained that anymore. You have already done that. You've already seen it. So this is what is the relevance of understanding it clearly. If you're just going to give me the definition of one word and you're going to overleaf the other, probably it will not be considered a good understanding. If you're going to give me just the definitions and not connect the two ideas that have been given to you in the question, then it is again not going to be a good analysis of it, and hence you will not be marked correct, right? So you are going to get a lot of marks for your introduction, and then you're going to get a lot of marks for your conclusion. So you better get that correct. That is where the whole conversation starts. So if the examiner is not going to feel confident about you, the examiner will not mark you well. The other is take your stand. So that is, if you are taking a stand of saying that black is a bad color, then stay on that. Don't start giving me a lot of positives as well. Although black is a very evil color, but also it shows us that the night is beautiful. The stars are only visible because of black in the night. The life becomes possible only because people see certain bad events in our life, which are also considered to be a black spot in our lives. But it is only, success is always stemming out of the black period that we have in our lives. So all of those things are positive ideas. So if you have chosen to take a negative stance on the color black, stay on that. That is, you will have to give me 4 negatives and 1 positive. You give me only 1 positive and 4 negatives. If you're saying that it is bad, if you're saying it's good, you give me 4 positives, 1 negative. 4:1 should be the ratio. And that one that you are going to produce, that is the opposite side, one idea of the opposite side, should be a very credible one. It shouldn't be a very plain, easy idea. And for this, you need other people's perspective. So as you read for Akshat, he told you that I shared it with my friends who were from different fields of work. So the reason that he shared it with his friends who were from different fields of work was to gain different perspectives. And hence, this is what is going to happen with you if you also share your topics, or you also discuss more with people who are from different walks of life. You will gain more perspective, and that one opposite idea that you're going to share in your essay should be that one perspective that you've gained from the other person. So that is very important. Follow a structure. What do you mean by this? A structure in your communication is very, very important. Just the mistake that I told you about, that is, for example, written in the first sentence, in the first paragraph, not happening. The minute you do that, you're going to go wrong. Also, when you are producing a major support statement, be very clear in those words. Do not make a mistake right there. Especially, I saw a lot of you made mistakes in the use of adjectives. You were making adjectives as you go. All of this is probably messaging language. You people have this habit of attaching ness with a word, and you think that it's an adjective. It's not. So don't do that in the examination. The more you do it, the worse is going to be the situation for you. Hence you need to improve on that, and that goes for everyone. Since we people have exposed ourselves to messages that much that it has affected our style of writing, then we have to come out of that messaging style of writing, because that is not an accredited style. That is not something that anybody would want for any writers anywhere, right? Apart from social media people, right? So those are the only guys who need messaging style English. Otherwise nobody needs it, and that also because a lot of people understand it that way now, right? So you need to come out of it. Otherwise you will not be getting selected. And then towards the end of it, you are required to give a conclusion. That is, there are three important parts: the introduction, the first paragraph; the body, which can have 2-3 paragraphs, whatever that you want. It depends on you, how many paragraphs do you want, but it has three major parts. So introduction, body, and conclusion. Body generally has those points about positives, negatives, case studies, for examples. All of those things are going to be the body of your essay, and the conclusion is again going to be a passage, a small paragraph, or there can be 2 paragraphs, depending on how much do you want to include in that conclusion. But conclusion is also a great area where you show a counter opinion. So although a lot of people say that black is a bad color, but I still believe that it is good. Although a lot of people say that black is a symbol of evil. Now, this was something that a lot of us said here. So what will I do? I will take this last important point that a lot of people feel, which is negative to my opinion, which is contrary to my opinion, and I will produce it in the conclusion. Although a lot of people say that 1 hour is a small time, I believe that 1 hour is enough for us to bring a change. Rather, 1 minute out of that hour is enough for us to bring a change, because a change starts with us, and I can change myself in a minute. I can change my perspective about life in a minute. So all of those things can be used. But I generally have this way of writing wherein I keep this one important last opposite opinion for my conclusion part. So I again produce a negative opinion or an opposite opinion in my conclusion, and I justify my conclusion really well, because I understand this from the years of experience that I have, that a lot of readers have this habit of first, especially the people who are assessing the examination, they have this habit of first reading the first paragraph, then just skimming over the body to understand if the words are correct or not, if the structure seems correct or not, and then towards the conclusion. So they generally go really fast on the essays. They don't read everything that is written in the examination. So I try and be more clear in my speech towards the beginning and towards the end. The last is watch your time. Sorry, the second last is watch your time. Now this becomes again very, very important. Watching your time. That is, you're going to be given somewhere between 15 to say 1 hour, but 1 hour, don't prepare yourself according to that, because most of the examinations are going to give you a good 30 minutes and that's it, right? So you're going to get 15 to say 1 hour, but prepare yourself according to 30 minutes. That is, the first 5 to say 10 minutes is the time that you have to prepare your communication, and always do that. Always do that. If you don't do it, you are going to see that you're going to make a lot of mistakes. If you're going to go into the examination without preparation, that is, if you're going to start writing the essay without preparation, what will happen is, while you are writing the next sentence, you will be thinking about one more sentence ahead of it. And that is what creates a block in your mind. I will show you in one of these examples that I have here that what will happen with you if you are not writing the points before, if you're not scribbling all of that information down and you directly delve into writing. Right, so we have seen problems here when you were writing it in the chat. We are again going to see those problems when you people write it in the examination. So we don't want that. So structure your time very clearly. 5 to 10 minutes is a good time. That is, I'm talking about, say, 25% of the time that should go in rough notes. Always, whatever time that you have in the examination, 25% of it always should go in preparing notes. Next is make it short and simple. Why do you think that this becomes really important? Because this is a communication that is being created for everyone. It's not just for your teacher to read it. Hence, there is something that is called the KISS matrix. I'm not sure if you people have read this before, but this says keep it short and sweet, stupid. That is, we're talking about keeping it short, that is to the point. So if you were talking about Rahul teaching a subject called English, don't start talking about his car, don't start talking about his house, don't start talking about whatever that he owns. You just stay on the topic. Very important. So if there was a topic called black and its relevance in our lives, don't start talking about black and don't start talking about your life different, right? Don't segregate that topic. You need to talk about the linkage between black and your life, and then you will have to explain it. So keep it short. In order to add more words, don't just start explaining it. So in India we have this bhais ka essay, right? So don't do that. So don't start describing the buffalo. Just go ahead and write about the topic that you have. The other is sweet and simple. What do I mean by this? Sweet and simple. That is, that can be understood by anyone. They can be understood by anyone. So don't use a lot of big words. I'm going to explain that in a minute. So the other that I wanted to talk to you about in terms of short is, if you can do with 10 words, don't use 11. If you can do with 10 words, don't use 11. Then you should not twist the sentence if straight would do. Don't unnecessarily make a sentence to be a compound sentence or a complex sentence if a simple sentence will be all right for you. So don't unnecessarily make the communication difficult for the reader. Be active, not passive. The language of leaders is active. That is, I will do this rather than this will be done by me. So leaders always talk in active voice. They don't use passive voice. And the other is, they always are direct in their speech. They're not indirect in their speech. They're not. So don't use reported speech. Use direct speech. It was said. No, don't say that. It was said. Just say he said, or I am saying, something of that sort. You should not use procrastinate if postpone would do. Now you're understanding what is it that my idea of sweet was. If you are aware of a word called procrastinate, right, it means to postpone something, but don't use that. Don't start talking about a word which is understood by only a few people. These are synonymous words and you can feel that it is common, but most of the people would want to use a word called postpone because that's something that they use in their general life. They use it in their offices, they use it at their home, and anyone whom you would talk to here in India these days would at least know this word called postpone. So you would want to use that simple word rather than a word called procrastinate, right? And the other is, when you put examples, facts, and figures, it becomes more lively. When you use example, facts, and figures, it becomes more lively. Why? Because you become more emphatic and knowledgeable. With facts, you become more knowledgeable. With examples and stories, you become more emphatic about the topic. So it becomes more relatable. And for this, I have a very simple example. The very reason that you people read those memes that are there on social media these days, the reason that you are a big fan of all of those memes is because they're very relatable. You love those characters, you love those dialogues, you love the way that they're related with your lives, and hence that's the interest. So if you're able to quote examples from your general life which the reader can also associate with, that is when your essay will be a hit. That is, the teacher will want to mark you 100 on it. And the last is, start well and end better. I told you that already. That is, I pay a lot of attention to my introductions. I pay a lot of attention to my conclusions. Those are very, very important things. While I'm doing that, I'm being crisp in my narration. That is, I'm not going too much off the topic. Even if I was wandering away from the topic, I immediately pulled myself back. So my points are going to help me in doing that. So when I'm jotting down those, I'm scribbling down those points, that is when I should have the ability of chucking those points out, which are not going to be within the ambit of my communication, within the ambit of my topic. So if there is a point that is too much away from it, then I'm not going to talk about that point. So this is all possible only if you're taking notes of your thoughts that occur to you. And the last is the most important set of things that you're supposed to do. So the WAT is basically an essay, and the time limit I've already discussed with you. So it's about say half an hour to about an hour. 15 minutes to 1 hour is the whole time frame. So some colleges will give you about 15 minutes, but then they are also going to ask you for a shorter essay. Know that. ऐसा नहीं है कि 15 मिनट देगा और आपको 800 words लिखने को बोल देगा. कम words लिखने को बोलेगा, obviously. And if they're giving you say an hour, then probably they're going to ask you for 800 words. That's the maximum. But you would want to prepare yourself like that. If you're able to write an 800 worder, then you will be able to write shorter ones as well. उनके अंदर तो और छोटा communication चाहिए और कम words चाहिए, आपको मिल जाएगा वो लिखने में ज़्यादा problem नहीं है. 800 words लिखने में ज़्यादा problem होता है. So try writing those, and I'm pretty sure that you people will start doing better. Now, the most important things that you need to remember 100% of the times whenever you are moving into the examination are these. Now, you cannot flaw on these. This is just a reminder on whatever that we people have discussed. The first is you cannot use jargons. Jargons are those words that can only be understood by a technical person or a student of that particular subject. So if you are using words that are used in botany, if you're using words that are used in medicine, if you're using words that are technical words, so if you're using a word called procrastinate, so you're using something that is a word which is a better vocabulary word, which can be understood by somebody who has been following English for a long time. But if there is someone who does not follow English that well, somebody who does not watch all of those series that you watch, or somebody who does not read all of those books that you read, then in that case, that person might not be able to understand that word. So you don't want that. Hence, don't use jargons, use very general common words. Next is be interesting while writing. How do you get interesting? I can become interesting by changing the background behind me. Right? So I became interesting by doing that. How is it that you will become interesting when you're writing it? You will become interesting by the use of examples, by the use of facts and figures that you quote in your in your essay. All of that is going to make it sound interesting. So that's the way that you become one. Don't be verbose. Don't be verbose. I have a very simple example for this. Consider this first statement. It says, with my ability to take things up and being the leader of my basketball team in college is a fact enough to say that I have tremendous leadership skills, which also have led me to see the constraints faced by true leaders. I'm not even sure that what is it that this sentence wanted to say. Kuch nahi samajh mein aaya, right? The next is this sentence, which is also the same thing, but in a shorter way. Being the captain for basketball in my college made me deal effectively with challenges faced by a team leader. Does that make more sense? It's the same thing that you wanted to say here, but you used so many words that it became just difficult to understand. It's so complex of a communication. Now, when does this happen? When does this happen? You might not want to do it actively, but it automatically happens. Why? Because you haven't created your communication. While this person was writing this sentence, while he was on writing this sentence, he was thinking about the next sentence as well. He was thinking about the next event. What is it that he's going to quote in the next paragraph? What is it that he's going to write in the next sentence? So while he was writing this sentence, he was actively thinking about the next sentence as well. And that is when verbosity happens. that is when you try and use a lot of words. You're also thinking about 800 वर्ड्स, ओ माय गॉड ये तो कंप्लीट नहीं हो पाएगा, कैसे करूं, चल इसके अंदर एक वर्ड और डाल देता हूं, चल इसके अंदर और ज्यादा एक्सप्लेन कर देता हूं. All of those things are practical. It's not something that it is going to happen with you. It can happen with any one of us. And hence, you are going to take notes before you start writing. This is death. This is self-goal. Even if you're not meeting the word limit, it's all right. Even if you are not able to write 800 words, it can still fetch you some marks. But if you start on this road, if you start writing rubbish to this extent that it is verbose, people will not want to read it. And if they don't want to read it, they will not mark it, even if it is 800 words, even if it is 1,000 words. They will not want to read it. In fact, it's long and it's verbose. People will not want to read it at all. लंबा है इतना ज्यादा 800 words और वो भी ऐसा लिखा हुआ, किसी को पढ़ने का मन नहीं करेगा. So you don't want that. So not at the cost of being concise in your speech. So this is very important. So the last few things that you need to remember is that is keep updated with the current affairs. This is pivotal. There is not even an exception to this case. There is never a situation wherein you can compete with the people in the world without even knowing what is happening in the world. So that's the importance of it. It's just existential. So you need to know what is happening in the world around you. Next is keep your focus on writing. Now this is again a point wherein I want to emphasize that if you're thinking about the example a lot, that is you're trying to be very interesting in your writing, what is it that you would want to think about a lot? The example. And then you get so deep in your thought about the example that you forget about the writing style. That is, you did not write a really good introduction. You were primarily thinking of a story that you know of to justify this particular topic. So the introduction was weak, the conclusion was weak. All of your focus was just on creating a really good story, right? So story was good, but the problem was the examiner was not interested in reading the whole through it. So it is very important that you follow the structure. You use normal words, even if your story is normal, not very interesting. The examiner still will be giving you a lot of marks for the introduction, for the story, and then for the conclusion. At least you will score an 8 out of 10, if not a 10 on 10. But if you did not follow the structure well, or if you did not create the introduction good or the conclusion good, and you were just focusing on the story in the middle, then in that case, you are ideally going to get only 3 or 4. So even if you wrote an amazing story, your essay is not good enough. So that's another learning. And the last is discuss the current affairs with your friends and think about others' perspective as well. This is the tip of the day. This is the tip for your life. That is, discuss current affairs. And I'm not even saying in English. Just discuss it in whatever language that you want. At the end of it, it's important to gather more perspectives. That is what makes you a rational individual. जो इंसान जिससे बात करी जा सके. A rational individual is somebody who can be talked to, somebody who is open to understanding other people's perspective. मुझको बुक में ये पढ़ा था, बस मुझे यही जानना है. मुझको डैडी ने ये बोला था, बस मुझे यही जानना है. मेरे फ्रेंड ने मुझको ये बोला था, बस यही सच है. You should not be that irrational. You should be rational. That means you should be open to understanding other people's opinion. You will only get their opinion when you talk to them. So you should discuss current affairs. That's the easiest because everybody is connected to that and everybody is affected by it in most cases. So you would want to discuss current affairs with your friends. That will help you a great deal. So this is what I had for you in terms of the understanding for the writing test. This gives you a fair perspective on what is it that they can ask you, how is it that you will be able to write it in the examination, what is it that they test you on. And I also shared with you the perspectives of the people who have already made it to the IIMs and how is it that they were able to do it. So this is a very startup sort of a thing wherein I have triggered you with the idea. The reason that I took it now was so that you people can start writing right away, because this will take time. This is not something that is going to happen with one essay or two essays. You will have to continuously write something. So if you want, you can write, you can send it to me. There are so many ways of reaching me. Now you have access to the WhatsApp group, so you can send it across to me as a link. Obviously, don't write the essay and send it to me as a text. So you can join the group and you can send it to me there. You can send it to me through YouTube. You can send it to me through the email address that you have. So there's so many ways in which you can share that with me.